The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. It fell softly against the glass, a rhythm that matched the quiet ache in her chest. Ha-Eun sat alone inside a small cafe tucked away in a corner street of Seoul, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The city lights outside blurred into colors, yellow, blue, red, like memories melting together. In front of her lay a sealed letter, edges slightly wet from her trembling fingers. She had read his name on the envelope 100 times but couldn't bring herself to open it, because she already knew what it would say. She could feel the words, the goodbye she never wanted to hear. Her voice breaks the silence. I wasn't looking for love. I was only trying to survive my loneliness. She wasn't waiting for anyone. Not tonight. Not anymore. But if someone had told her a year ago that she would fall in love with a man who wasn't hers to love, that she would taste happiness and heartbreak in the same breath, she would have laughed. Love wasn't part of her plans. But temptation doesn't ask for permission. It just walks into your life when your heart is unguarded. And sometimes, it leaves behind a letter you'll never be ready to open. From the story, she wasn't looking for love, but found temptation. Before I tell you what was inside that letter, I want to ask you something, not as a storyteller, but as someone who's felt love slip through her fingers. Have you ever met someone who wasn't supposed to mean anything, but somehow they became everything? You didn't plan for it. You didn't chase it. It just happened, quietly, dangerously, beautifully. You tried to ignore it, didn't you? You told yourself it was just a moment, a spark, something that would fade. But your heart, it had other plans. That's how Ha-Eun's story began. She wasn't searching for love. She wasn't even ready for it. But love has a way of finding the cracks in your walls, doesn't it? It doesn't care about timing, status, or logic. It just comes, and sometimes it costs more than you expect to pay. If you've ever felt that kind of love, the kind that scares you, heals you, and breaks you at the same time, then this story is for you. So before we go deeper into Ha-Eun's journey, take a second to like this video if you believe that love, real love, always finds its way, and subscribe if you want more stories that speak straight to your heart. And tell me in the comments, have you ever loved someone you couldn't have? Because that's where our story begins, with a love that was never meant to happen, but did. It happened on a quiet Thursday evening, the kind of night when the rain falls steady and soft, like background music. Ha-Eun had just finished teaching her last art class. The children's laughter had faded, the paints were cleaned, and the small studio smelled of turpentine and coffee. She was tired but calm, ready to close for the night, when a little girl ran in, dripping from the rain. Is this where the art class is? The girl asked shyly, holding a small sketchbook against her chest. Before Ha-Eun could answer, a man rushed in after her, holding an umbrella. He bowed quickly, rainwater still glistening on his coat. I'm so sorry, he said. My niece. She was so excited. She ran ahead. Ha-Eun smiled politely, brushing a strand of wet hair behind her ear. It's okay, she said softly. You're just in time. That was how she met Ji-ho. He stayed through the class, sitting quietly at the back, watching his niece paint. Ha-Eun noticed how gentle he was, how he helped his niece mix colors, how he smiled with his eyes instead of his mouth. There was something calm about him, something safe. When the class ended, he thanked her and bowed again. She thought that was it, a polite encounter, nothing more. But fate wasn't done. A week later, on another rainy night, Ha-Eun stopped by a convenience store near her apartment. As she stood by the counter, paying for instant ramen and a small bottle of soju, a familiar voice behind her said, I didn't expect to see you here. She turned. It was Ji-ho, holding a bag of groceries and wearing that same calm smile. They laughed about the coincidence. Seems like we both survive on convenience store dinners, he said. They stood outside, sharing one umbrella as they waited for the rain to ease. It was awkward at first, then comfortable. They talked about work, about Seoul traffic, about nothing and everything. When the rain stopped, neither of them moved. They didn't know it yet, but that simple, quiet meeting under a shared umbrella was the first drop of a storm that would change both of their lives forever. It started with small things, accidental texts, short calls, and harmless laughter. At least, that's what Ha-Eun told herself. After that night under the umbrella, Ji-ho stopped by her studio often, saying he wanted to buy a painting for his office. But he never chose one. He just stayed, asking questions, helping her arrange canvases, watching her paint in silence. There was no flirting, no promises, no declarations. But something invisible began to grow between them, quiet, careful, and real. He told her about his work, his niece, his dreams of designing a home near the sea. She told him about her students, her art, her fear of getting attached again. And somewhere between all those conversations, they forgot to draw a line. They started meeting after class, walking by the Han River with warm drinks in their hands. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. They just walked side by side, listening to the sound of water and city lights flickering across its surface. One evening, Ha-Eun showed him her unfinished painting, a woman standing in the rain, looking toward the light. "She's waiting for someone," Ji-ho said. "No," Ha-Eun replied quietly. "She's realizing she doesn't have to wait anymore." He smiled. "Still, sometimes waiting makes us feel alive." It was then she saw it, the sadness behind his eyes. The kind of sadness you carry when you've lived too long pretending to be fine. They never said it out loud, but both of them knew what was happening. Every shared smile, every late-night text, every quiet goodbye, it all meant more than it should have. One night, he brought her dinner to the studio after she forgot to eat. "You shouldn't take care of me like this," she whispered. "Then who should?" he said softly, looking at her like she was something he had been searching for. That night, when his hand brushed hers, she didn't pull away. It was just a touch, brief, trembling, and full of meaning. And though no words followed, both of them understood. It wasn't friendship anymore. It wasn't innocent anymore. It was love, quiet, forbidden, and terrifyingly beautiful. They both knew it would hurt someday. But for now, they chose to ignore the truth and live in the illusion that love, no matter how wrong, could still feel right. It was a Saturday afternoon when everything began to fall apart. Ha-Eun was cleaning her studio when Ji-ho's phone, forgotten on the table, started to ring. The name on the screen made her heart stop. Yuri, wife. Her hands froze. Her mind went blank. He had never mentioned being married. When Ji-ho returned, she quietly asked, "Who's Yuri?" His silence was the answer. He looked down, guilt flooding his face. "It's not what you think," he said. But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. She backed away, shaking her head. "You're married?" "Yes, but it's complicated," he said quickly. "We've been separated for almost a year. I didn't mean to hide it. I just didn't know how to tell you." Ha-Eun laughed bitterly. "Separated? That's still married, Ji-ho." For days, she ignored his calls. She couldn't paint, couldn't sleep. The man who made her heart come alive had lied to her. The one thing she feared most, betrayal, had found her again. When he finally showed up at her studio, she didn't want to see him. But his eyes, tired, broken, made her listen. "I didn't plan this," he said. "I was lonely. My marriage ended long before I met you. But you made me remember what it feels like to be alive." Ha-Eun felt her anger crumble, replaced by something worse, understanding. Because deep down, she still loved him. But love built on lies cannot breathe. Rumors began to spread. Someone had seen them together. At her school, whispers followed her everywhere. Her students' parents complained. The principal warned her to stay out of trouble. The world began to turn against her. Her heart wanted to fight for him. But her reputation, her career, everything she had worked for, was on the line. Ji-ho begged her to wait. "Once my divorce is final, I'll come back for you," he promised. She looked at him with trembling eyes. "Don't make promises you can't keep." The rain poured that night as he left, just like the first night they met. But this time, she didn't wait for him to turn back. She let him walk away, even as her heart shattered in silence. Because sometimes, love isn't destroyed by hate, it's destroyed by truth. 2 months passed. Ha-Eun tried to move on, but her world felt empty. Her paintings turned gray, her laughter faded, and her studio became a graveyard of unfinished dreams. Then one evening, as she was closing the studio, she saw him, Ji-ho, standing outside, soaked in rain, just like the first night they met. Her heart screamed to run to him, but her mind whispered, "Don't." He stepped closer. His voice cracked. "I signed the divorce papers," he said. "It's over, Ha-Eun. I'm free now." Tears filled her eyes. "Free? Ji-ho, you think love is that simple? You broke something in me. You made me question everything I believed in." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I know. I hurt you, but I can't stop loving you. I tried. I failed." Ha-Eun turned away, trembling.
You lied, Ji-ho.
"You made me part of your secret. I became the woman you had to hide." He took a step closer. "You were never a secret to me. You were my truth." Their voices echoed through the empty street, their pain louder than the thunder above. Ha-Eun's tears finally fell. "Then why does your truth still feel like a lie?" Ji-ho looked broken, the kind of broken no apology could fix. He reached for her hand. For a second, she let him. The warmth was still there, that same dangerous spark. But then, headlights cut through the rain. A car stopped nearby. A woman stepped out. Yuri. Her face was pale, her voice steady. "So this is her," she said quietly. "The woman who helped you forget your vows."
Ha-Eun froze.
Ji-ho tried to explain, but Yuri didn't shout. She just looked at Ha-Eun, not with anger, but pity. "You should know, Miss Ha-Eun, he didn't leave me. I left him, because love shouldn't hurt this much." Then she turned to Ji-ho. "Don't break her the way you broke me." Without another word, Yuri left, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than thunder. Ha-Eun's breath trembled. "She's right," she whispered. "We're not love, Ji-ho. We're what happens when loneliness meets desire." He looked at her, eyes red. "Then what was it, Ha-Eun?" "A mistake." She shook her head slowly.
No.
"It was real. That's what makes it hurt so much." He tried to hold her again, but she stepped back, tears streaming down her face. "Sometimes love isn't about holding on," she said softly. "It's about knowing when to let go." And for the first time, Ji-ho didn't chase her. He just stood there in the rain, watching the woman he loved walk away, just as she had once watched him. That night, Seoul was silent. Only the rain bore witness to a love that was beautiful, forbidden, and tragically true. Months passed like faded brushstrokes across a forgotten canvas. Winter came to Seoul, and the city's once busy streets felt slower, quieter, just like Ha-Eun's heart. She poured all her pain into her art. The rain, the heartbreak, the faces she couldn't forget, they all became colors on her canvas. Her studio, once filled with sadness, now glowed with meaning. One of her new paintings, The Goodbye in the Rain, caught the attention of a local gallery. They invited her to showcase her work. It was her first real exhibition. The night of the opening, the room was full of people, art lovers, critics, strangers. Yet among them, Ha-Eun felt a strange calm. Then quietly she saw him, Ji-ho, standing in the back, wearing a simple black coat. He looked different, older, quieter, softer. Their eyes met, and the world stopped for a heartbeat. He smiled, but didn't move closer. Later, when most guests had gone, he approached her. "I wasn't sure if I should come," he said, "but I wanted to see what your heart painted." Ha-Eun looked at him, the man who had been both her happiness and her heartbreak. "You were part of the story," she said softly. "I couldn't paint it without you." He nodded. "I don't expect forgiveness." "I know," she replied, "and I'm not angry anymore." Silence filled the space between them, peaceful this time. No longing, no pain, just understanding. "Are you happy now?" he asked. She smiled gently. "I'm learning to be." He looked around the room at the paintings glowing under soft light. "You turned pain into something beautiful." Ha-Eun took a deep breath. That's what artists do. Then she said the words she never thought she could say. "Thank you, Ji-ho, for teaching me what love isn't and what it could be." He smiled sadly.
Goodbye, Ha-Eun.
"Goodbye." He walked away slowly, disappearing into the cold night. For the first time, she didn't cry. She just stood there, watching him go, feeling something new, peace. Outside, snow began to fall. The city lights reflected in the white flakes, soft and calm. Ha-Eun closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "He wasn't my forever, but he was my awakening." She turned back to her painting, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Because even broken hearts can still create something beautiful. Love doesn't always come wrapped in perfection. Sometimes it arrives broken, unexpected, and painfully real. Ha-Eun once believed that love was something pure, something that healed. But what she found with Jiho taught her that love can also wound, confuse, and test the limits of who we are. She learned that temptation isn't always about desire. Sometimes it's about finding warmth in someone when you're cold inside, about seeing your reflection in another person's pain, and confusing that reflection for destiny. But in the end, every heartbreak carries a message. And hers was clear. You can't build peace on secrets. You can't heal while holding on to what broke you. And you can't call it love if it costs you your self-respect. Love, she realized, isn't about possession. It's about presence. Being honest, being brave, and letting go when holding on hurts too much. And though her story ended in goodbye, it didn't end in regret. Because sometimes the love that doesn't last is the one that teaches you how to truly live. Ha-Eun's heart no longer ached when she thought of Jiho. Instead, she felt gratitude for the art, for the memories, and for the strength to start again. In the quiet of her studio, she whispered, "He wasn't my forever, but he was my lesson." If this story touched your heart, take a deep breath and think about it. Have you ever met someone who wasn't meant to stay, but still changed you forever? Sometimes, love doesn't give us happy endings. Sometimes it gives us understanding. And that's what Ha-Eun's story reminds us, that not all broken hearts are failures. Some are beginnings in disguise. If you've ever loved someone you had to let go of, if you've ever stood in the rain, wondering if they'd turn back, then you already know what this story feels like. Love isn't about forever. It's about the moments that teach us who we are, what we deserve, and how strong we can become. So, if you felt something today, if Ha-Eun's journey reminded you of your own, drop a red heart in the comments. Share your story below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true love stories that touch the soul and stay in your heart long after the video ends. Because love, real love, never truly ends. It just transforms.